Hello, so nice to have you here. I hope you can hear me well. So as usual, I ask you to confirm that. So I make sure we are connected decently. Patricia, life is a gift. Mark and everyone there, thank you very much for joining. We have such an exciting topic for today. And it's lovely that we can be live together so you can ask me questions and help me go further into the aspects that are important to you. We are going to discuss what are the types of beings, consciousness, spirits that we can meet when we are projected outside of our bodies. And that is not a so straightforward answer because we need to understand contexts. I am hoping here to be able to give you a brief of that so that we can direct this whole conversation on this topic. For those of you who are here with me for the first time, I see some of your names that I am not familiar with. I am Nancy Trivellato, be very welcome. I am seeing here among us some old friends. Dovi, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Trevor, very nice. Mohier, very nice to have you here. And in this, I prepared a few list of topics because I want to make sure some things I cover and I explain. If we were going to try and address all different possibilities of encounter that we have in an astral projection, we should be at least classifying a dozen or 2 dozen of different types of categories. But I want to divide it in big blocks so that you can understand your projections and you can figure out what you should do in each of these cases and how can you process and understand what are real experiences and real beings that you are seeing and what can be a mix with our imagination, fantasy, or even some non-physical beings like some spirits or entities trying to deceive us, which is another point of complexity. But don't worry, when we are outside of the body with lucidity, we are aware, we are in control of the experience. It's absolutely possible to be able to identify each of these cases. The difficulty is not, therefore, to know of this when we are projected outside the body with lucidity. The greatest difficulty is when we are really projected, really outside the body. We are participating in the events, but we are not as lucid as the maximum. Because when we think of the degree of lucidity and control we can have outside the body, we can go from dreams that are not even conscious, are just like elements and information and stimuli of our brain that are reorganized. And then it gets a little bit more lucid. We go to a lucid dream, but it's still here in the fringe more of a dream than a real experience or a real astral projection or out-of-body experience. But then, if the lucid dream gets more and more real, we keep growing, we get to the out-of-body experience, the real one, which involves us being awake, but not in the physical body, involves us knowing who we are, having some clue of the situation. And the more lucid we are, the more we know, the more we are in control. The less lucid, the more things get fuzzy. So we need to understand this range. And I'm going to give you some explanations and examples of type of encounters we can have in an astral projection that you will see this range here that we are trying to understand is super important. I think I lost the internet for a moment. Are you all there with me? Can you hear me and see me well? Yes? If not, some of you please shout there so I can try and do something. When I speak with you, it takes almost 1 minute for you to hear me, and vice versa. So we have to be patient in this connection here. But I see you guys said yes, wonderful. So one of the things that I would like to mention when we think of the non-physical reality and people we can meet, I'm going to say people, but people refers more into the physical beings. But most of the times, those that we encounter outside the body are people who are are without a physical body. They are in between lives. But how different can people be here in this world? Well, it's almost impossible for us to explain that unless we do a super treatise and study, and even so, there are going to be some types left out. It is the same outside the body. But if we can understand the mechanisms, we can understand what is important. So one thing that I would like to start by mentioning to you is about animals. Where are animals outside the body? Can we encounter animals? This is a bit of a mystery, even when we put together the experience of all trustworthy out-of-body experiencers, astral projectors. And I say trustworthy because we need to get accounts that they make sense in terms of the non-physical experience. There are people with experience enough. But when we put all of these accounts together, we see that it's not so simple, not so common to encounter animals. We can try and think of why. I have my own theory, which I'm going to share with you, but that is my theory, as of why we don't encounter as many. Like you go to a community and all petties in the world are here, or all of the chimps are here who pass through the physical death. And are they going to be reborn? In which condition? We know little about that. We know a little, but not enough to go too much in depth. But when we think of this, if you go back to one of the discussions that I gave here, which I absolutely recommend you watch to be able to follow well what we are going to discuss here, that is what the spirit world is made of. When you go to that discussion, goodness, when we go to that discussion, you will see that some of the elements that we can understand when we travel a lot outside the body and examine the energy of each of these different dimensions and environments we see, is that there is a tendency for consciousnesses to attract themselves based on some similarities or some characteristics. This is a super simplification, but of course, just to bring the topic here. And they tend to create communities. So when we are so different from one given community that is either too low, much higher than our evolutionary level, or very different, it's not so easy for us to visit there. Not impossible, but not common. You see what I mean? However, we do encounter animals outside the body. Usually the common accounts of that are encountering animals that were, for example, our own pets. And when they pass away for a period, it's usually more common to be able to encounter them. Then there is another situation that I want to clarify. In many situations, some non-physical entities, like some spirits or entities, they may approach us with a type of energy and a type of intention that causes us to see them, to feel them as animals, or even more common, they create some sort of transfiguration of their appearance, and they appear to us as animals. Why would they do that? Because we guide ourselves so much to the appearance of things that when you see someone in your astral projection, which is more or less the same here in the physical world, right? But when you see someone that looks like an animal, that looks very gentle and small, you assume it's very friendly. When you see an animal that is angry and maybe barking at you or trying to jump at you, we have a reaction. So to produce some sort of inner reaction and energy on us, sometimes some of these entities, they show themselves as animals. Probably several of you who are watching this video have already had experiences in which you felt you were being persecuted by an animal, attacked by an animal. I have had several, because they kind of do this. But what is important is not the appearance, but the feeling, the information that remains with you. I remember once that I had an experience, and there was an encounter with a non-physical consciousness. Awful. Someday I'm going to tell you this story apart because there's so much to explain there. But I have seen an email. You know, when people share these emails with some stupid thing, and I saw that email just for a brief moment, and there was such a bad energy that came. That energy caused me to somehow open doors or encounter some very negative being outside the body that tried to take advantage of my energy. What happened is that I immediately got my lucidity and came back to the body. But when I came back to the body, that entity came, and I almost felt like that animal, in that image was a big dog, that animal was there inside my bedroom, like physically there. It was not there. It was just, my point here is it was so vivid that I almost felt like that. What is this? It's something that sometimes even happens to us in dreams. We are not sure if it's a dream, if it's an out-of-body experience. So this is a connection with specific type of entity, with a specific type of intention. But that is as far as it goes for animals. I hope this clarifies a bit the sort of situation that can happen, or that most commonly happen. Sometimes we can see an animal in a benign condition, like doing something benign or acting more consciously, if I can call it this, if I can use this expression, outside the body, but that is rare. It's not the standard. The standard is more this that I just mentioned to you. Now, there is another type of situation that it's very common, and we encounter these beings. It is when we encounter people, consciousnesses, better saying, that are in the similar evolutionary level that we are. Similar in a sense that they have some lucidity of what is going on in between lives, but not full. They may be balanced emotionally in some aspects, but not in all. Those are the most common encounters. And usually, these encounters are prompted by connections that we do during the day. During the day means not only people we see, but sometimes you go to a place and there is some sort of energy, and you end up connecting with some information of the energy in that place. And that causes you to end up being in a vibe, like in a frequency, that you meet this consciousness outside the body. It doesn't mean good or bad, it can be either. It's just that it's not so significant in terms of what it means. Is that something you have to work on? Is that somebody good, positive, trying to tell you something? No, it's just someone that was there. Usually, or most of the times, we don't even interact. We just saw somebody that was there in the corner, or you were passing by a street and you see someone, and the first thing you will try to recognize when you see someone in a street, and I'm talking of a street of a physical place, so you are outside the body, you are being able to see a physical place, a given street. Oxford Street in London, let's put it this way, so all of us will have something in our minds. So when you are seeing that, first thing you are going to ask yourself in that moment, is this a consciousness, a being that is with physical body or without physical body? There starts the complication, because sometimes we see some specific presences that we don't necessarily interact with. In these cases, most of the time we don't interact with. We see, but we do not know what it means, and we do not even start to ponder and question there during the out-of-body experience if that specific being that we saw or consciousness is in the physical body or projected or it's in between lives. So that is one of the things that we have to take into consideration. Having said that, there is one situation that we need to have in mind in relation to who we meet, where, and why. Sometimes, let me make a parenthesis, sometimes here in the physical world, in our physical lives, we may have some encounters, meet people physically, or go to places, or have an accident, or that are just partially coincidence. So some people say there is no coincidence. Well, there is no coincidence, but sometimes there are karmic accidents, things that were not supposed to happen, and they end up happening, or things that do not have a specific causality. A confluence of situations, of course, produced that event. And then we can say, well, this happened because there was a confluence of events. Yes, but this confluence of events, was it meaningful? These events were meaningful. They mean something to me, karmically speaking. Sometimes here in the physical world, not necessarily, for a very long story that we can develop in another moment, but because of the characteristics of our manifestation here in the physical world, and how our lucidity, our awareness, us as selves interact with the physical brain, with the physical body, with the physical world. However, when we are outside of the body, there are no coincidences. If you see somebody that is not so positive or is a little bit confused, or you see someone that seems to be wiser or is manipulative, all of that has a meaning. However, the meaning sometimes is us meaning, or no meaning, right? I try to say us in a sense that our connections in terms of our energy, the information that we have in our energy field, the information that we have in our energy based on situations we have experienced in previous lives, generated that encounter. So if you encounter a being that is a bit aggressive or a little bit threatening or looks strange, that being in this example is there because of an energetic connection with yourself. And there the point is, what characteristic in my energy, and characteristic is not, oh, it's my chakra is too open, it's too closed. Of course, it can be. But the most important thing is what sort of information, ethics, lucidity, what quality of understanding of the evolution of the spirit I have, that I still need to improve so that I have less of those connections. So we bring the attention to ourselves, situations that we did or we may still do and we are not conscious. But most of these encounters, they are related with situations that happen around of us, but not because of us. So let me clarify that. So I'm trying to get a big one and go to small fractions here. So in this case, what happens is that sometimes you work in a place that has a specific ethics. And of course, the ethics of the owner, the ethics of the management, and the ethics of the product, and the ethics of their advertisement, and the ethics of everything starts creating an energetic information. Most places are okay, people are just competitive, and we may have a partner, a colleague, that is not so nice with energy, another one is. So most places are like this. But sometimes there are places in which the energy of the company is not good. So you work in that company, and maybe you work there for so long. When you come back home, the people, again, let me rephrase it. The non-physical consciousness, spirits, entities, beings that are not physical, that are related to the specific interests and principles of that company, are there gravitating, they're participating, they support all of the work there. They keep things in a certain status quo. So you may get back home, try to have out-of-body experience, you don't manage, or you encounter people that are strange, seems to you like odd, but it's because of your workplace and the connections you do there, not because of you. So the cause of that. Can you follow what I'm saying? So whoever we encounter outside the body, wherever we go, it has a meaning, but not always the cause that produced that, the origin of that situation is ourselves. So we have to take a look at our lives and our energies a little bit like a condominium, like a collective, not a collective in our consciousness, in our mind, but a collective in terms of energy, because our energy connects with everything. every object, every place, with some more than others. But of course, saying that, there's a very positive side to this, because sometimes we will encounter beings that are very positive, very advanced, but we need to know the characteristics, because sometimes we may have encounters, and all of this is to give you an overview of the topic. So you bring me questions about this topic, who we can encounter outside the body, okay? But just to conclude my overview, because I'd like to complete this live talk with you having new components, new information for you to work with. But now what happens is that sometimes some non-physical beings are manipulative. And here, unfortunately, I guess this is the most complex category, because many times we are concerned with meeting someone who is not well, who is not happy about something we did, or who wants to hurt us. That is not the greatest of our concerns, because if somebody tries to attack you, with whichever means, usually is just more through bullying, but if it affects us. But if somebody tries to attack you, you know you shouldn't go for that. You know you have to run from that. You know you do not want to repeat that encounter. Unfortunately, sometimes it repeats. It repeats almost like recurrent, not because of the out-of-body experience. Even unconsciously, people leave the body and they will encounter those energies that are very close to them. But what I'm trying to say here is that trying to leave the body, learning about the out-of-body experience, producing out-of-body experience is not responsible for these attacks. What is responsible for these attacks is the type of energy that may be around and connected, number one. And number two, our lack of energy control, which we are learning and we are going to learn. But that is no problem. It's just like a not so nice experience. You get back to your body, you work with your energy, you will get back to your body, and you put everything normal. Sometimes we encounter some consciousnesses that they pretend to be nice. And I do not want to make you be suspicious or afraid, because it's very obvious. If you are lucid, it's obvious. You cannot be deceived, because we feel the intention in the energy. But some people are naive. And I have to be here very honest with you. It is my job here. Some people are very naive because they read a book and they read about some class of special beings that are very advanced and come from wherever that nobody even knows if that specific place exists. And they are so much into that, like into the theoretical, ideological information behind that, or knowledge, that when they are outside the body, some consciousness come to them and use the fact that they are expecting to see something like that. They are hoping to see something like that. They believe it's always something like that that they see, and they use that to convince the projector that this is what they are experiencing. So some people, just to give you an example so you understand better what I'm trying to say. So some people, they would appear outside the body and say, oh, please help me, or let's go help people that are in need, and you are projected. So you are projected, but they are deceiving you. But that means you are projected, but not very lucid. The lucidity here is only average. And there are techniques that we can apply to increase our lucidity. That's a whole new process. In several of my previous lives, I have answered questions about that and given tips about that. But the point here is they can use your own expectations. And then we assume, oh, this is my guide. Why is this your guide? Oh, because he or she said he loves me, or she loves me. Oh, because they are always there, only supporting me. Supporting or hanging around? Because sometimes we may have friends that they are not bad, but they may influence us in certain ways that we are only going to see 30 years later, or we don't even see. I'm not saying all friends. We have friends that are real friends, but some are not real friends. And we may join into some groups that deep down, they're trying to convince us of something. So we have to be very attentive of this. Nowadays, because of so much of this culture of studying extraterrestrials, many times people are deceived outside the body because of trusting what they are seeing or who they are seeing are extraterrestrials. In the same way someone will look like an animal because we interpret in that way, or because they create a transfiguration and show it that way, it's possible to look like an extraterrestrial. Having said that, I'm not saying extraterrestrials don't exist and we cannot meet them outside the body. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, because of jumping into conclusion and being too much into that, hearing lots of theories that they have no basis, people start opening doors to be manipulated. Or if somebody expects, if I see someone who is very evolved, who is going to help you, they will have wings. Okay, so let me remove the extraterrestrial. If you expect they will have wings, somebody with a little bit more control of energy and very smart, like smart in the wrong sense, will appear like that. And you will be convinced that they are your greatest supporters. What is the problem with that? It's almost as if you are following into a cult here, but you are following into a cult of a few consciousness, few entities, or a cult of believing that group is of a certain type. They are not. They start getting close. They accompany you in your everyday life. And the information in your energy and the type of connections that you do will be, it's not contaminated. It's like they will be influenced in different degrees by these presences and your deep connection with that ideology. I'm going to put it this way because I'm speaking about consciousnesses who are trying to bring others to believe in whatever they believe. And in this case, again, not saying that they are saying something that doesn't make sense, but saying that they are using something that makes sense to manipulate you. In Brazil, we have a completely different type of situation that is very common. Because here, because of the spiritist religion and a lot of what is part of the culture, speaking about energy and the spirit world, we have so much of that here. Everybody believes they are experts when deep down, sometimes they are just getting information and putting all in a bowl that to them it's separate pieces. Because of this, there are some expectations. That is, if I am outside the body, I have to do assistance. I have to help people. And when I am really lucid and balanced outside the body, I will be helping other consciousnesses. This happens, of course, and this is one of the most advanced things and one of the most pleasurable type of astral projection you can have. Feel that you are useful. Feel the energy of participating in an assistential process. However, if the person thinks I have to do that in this event, and I want my spirit guides to take me to do that, and if I am good, and if I pray enough, I'm going to be doing that, then some non-physical presence and entity appears there. Oh yes, let's go do assistance. And the person, the projector, goes to environments that are just with a structure that is only, like a circus, like a theater, and they get more and more caught into their energies, and their energies are used. So it's not hurting them, it's not attacking, but it's hurting in different ways. Can you understand this? It's physical. Life is the same, right? And I'm not telling you who manipulates you or not. I'm just giving examples. I want you to think by yourself so that you can understand the possible situations that can happen to you. Because sometimes we go to places or we encounter some spirits and entities that it's confusing. We get back to the body and we say, who was that? Was that a mentor? Was that person trying to help me and say something? But that means that person is my mentor or my spirit guide and is always with me. And then Am I going to check and know their names? So all of these sometimes is tricky for us, for you and for me as well. But as I have learned through decades of sometimes making mistakes and having to learn through that, I'm here transferring knowledge and experience to you. We do have people who we encounter outside the body and who sometimes get close to us here in the physical world, who are just friends. They would like to be useful. So yes, they can encounter us and give us a tip. They can talk to us. Sometimes we encounter a relative who passed away that we may have a lovely encounter, share lots of loving energy. And people that we do not remember our relatives in this lifetime, but when we encounter them, we feel like, I know this consciousness, I know this one here. It's hard to say, like, because it looks like a person, but it's not a physical person. But you feel you know. So that is possible. We have to be open to that. How are you going to distinguish those who are manipulative, those who maybe they're pretending something, and those who are real friends? By, at that moment, employing your discernment, by allowing yourself to think, to ask, because sometimes we are taught that everyone we encounter outside of the body who is not evil is good. That is the same as saying the world only exists evil and good. That is so far from the truth. So it's the same thing, okay? So you apply that type of judgment when you are outside the body. And sometimes we have consciousnesses helping us who are friends, but more than just friends. In a different sense, not what we mean here. What I mean by more than just friends is because sometimes they are our real spiritual or spirit mentor. And what is their roles? Is to guide us into bigger things. So usually they are not going to get involved into just, being there with us every time so we don't feel alone. They have things to do. It's like if you have an excellent doctor that takes care of you, who is operating the most complex types of illnesses or dysfunctions of the body. They cannot be there for you whenever you want to chat or just check if you have a little, what's the word of that? A little, wow, no mark in your skin. No, the word escaped me, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So we cannot assume that the doctor will be there. These consciousnesses, beings that are in between lives, so people like us, but who already went so much further ahead into grasping what the reality is, controlling all of the different types of their experiences and bodies and energies. And this is a very complex thing, because if we make it superficial, it's like we are just creating another special type of being. It's not these. There are logics behind it. It can be studied. We can see the characteristics, and we are not going to label anybody. If you want to know about this, I recommend you watch the Consciousness Development Program, because it goes from the very basics and grows with the knowledge so much, to the point that you start understanding how evolution works and the different types of beings, but not by just believing in it, by understanding why, and you will judge. We present the information, the evidences. And we discuss what is a theory, what's a hypothesis, what's a model. If you ever want to take the Consciousness Development Program, I absolutely recommend it. You have a link here in the description that gives you a very significant discount if you want to take advantage of it. Anyways, so you will have friends that are very advanced. Those are the spirit mentors, and they try to support you in whatever situation you are needing, as long as you really need. Sometimes we want things that we don't need. And the most important thing that we need would be to be coherent with the direction of our life plan, our life task, our life mission, because then we are progressing inside and outside. Of course, in the physical world, we are going to be happier and everything. But so then they help us with that. And I guess this kind of concludes my introduction, that I tried to go from those that are kind of strange and hard to understand, and those that are more aggressive. Sometimes we may encounter beings that are in a really bad shape, like confused and do not know who they are. You cannot even communicate with them. Are you going to meet them? Very improbable. Very improbable, because we usually will encounter beings that are closer to our level of manifestation, or they mean something to us, meaning they have a connection with us karmically or based on the other factors that I have mentioned before. So it's very improbable that we will ever encounter beings that are so lost. If we do encounter, wow, that is wonderful. It means we were able to expand the type of connections and relations that we have outside the body, and it's an excellent opportunity to try and help. Sometimes we can help easily, sometimes it's very hard to help. Sometimes we encountered that consciousness was kind of lost or hurt to help, because we have had a connection in past lives, or maybe even a spirit mentor helped us to reach that person for us to be able to support them. But that is, of course, a big context. But I hope here I gave you some idea of what type of beings we can encounter outside the body. And especially, I did not intend to make a list, but help you think about experiences you have already had and encounters you have had, and those that you have in the future. Okay? I'm going to go to your question. Is that fine? Before I jump to your questions, let me remind you of a couple of things. The first one, if you are here, if you are enjoying this video, remember to give me a thumbs up. That is very relevant nowadays. Second thing I want to remind you is that I am offering some free things there you can find in my website. So I have here the page of my website to show you. I hope you can see well, so I'm going to do this so you can see better. And if you open the product session, you are going to see here that I am offering, and this left top product there, it is a free out-of-body experience session, guided session with a technique. So if you want to join, make sure you register. Okay, you have all the details there, because I'm going to inform you it's not going to be open to the public. It's going to be on a Saturday that we are always together, but I want that Saturday to be a special thing. So we are going to be in a group working to leave the body. I do not want others to enter in the middle of the exercise, because it doesn't help us who are already live online. It won't help them. But I will make it available afterwards if you want to watch afterwards. But I need you to register to be present. Okay, so make sure you go there, you leave your name. And the other thing is the multidimensional force field course. I'm going to give the whole 5 phases. I'm going to give the whole first phase free, because there is so many important techniques and tools there that I think it's totally worthwhile. And then I may have a situation with a number of participants, but the first part already gives you so much. So that is it that I have there. I have the free ebook that I believe you are here with me, you know. It's there, and I have other courses and other products as well. Okay, so that is what I wanted to make sure I informed you before we went ahead with your questions. May I please remember, and I should have reminded you, I didn't, to write question before your question. So you help me, because sometimes there are comments, interesting comments, that I take a look, I read, and sometimes I read while I am even talking, but I need to know what are questions, because I am by myself selecting them. Sometimes I see comments that I do not know if they are meant for me to comment on them, or they are just you sharing your opinion. So next time you are here with me live, you help me, okay? But I will read, just so that we are here together on this. Leonardo is saying, same with psychedelics. You open your mind for entities, shrooms, DMT, LSD, all of it is witchcraft. Of course, these things cause an impact. I wouldn't call it witchcraft, but I perhaps would say if somebody has any energy that is negative around, these things can make the person more open. We tend to think that all of this is positive because we hear these stories in which these are positive effects. And especially with DMT, there's so many stories that of its positive effects, but some cases it's not positive. I'm not saying in favor or against. I'm just mentioning it because there are some effects in the body that affect the way our brain works, that will affect how our energy interacts with this body, affects how we interact with the non-physical astral dimension, which is wonderful when it works well, but it can be awful when it doesn't. But anyway, thank you, Leonardo. It was more a comment, right? Mohammed here helped me say it's a remark. Hi, Mohammed. Nice to have you here. Nancy, what you say is really important about consciousness that try to manipulate. Even we are not out of the body, indeed, it's true. It's just a continuation of the physical world, right? Same thing happened here and there. I used to be in Spiritism group. It's incredible how these entities can use true information to manipulate via mediums. Yes, Mohammed, I have witnessed so many things as well. Of course, good mediums exist, but many times it's just manipulated to use these things, and they manipulate people. I have so many of you here with me, and I have so few questions. Help me here. I want to make sure I am being useful to you. It's a bit overwhelming, right? I have the vegan skeptic. Hello, welcome. Welcome here to the channel. First time I see you. I usually recognize people here even by name. And I have Fernando, Nancizinha, okay. Let me bring here your comment. I think the so-called beings we see in astral projection are mostly just metaverse or universe, like NPC beings, and they work to deceive us with new age or religious belief to eventually reincarnate us. I understand what you mean. You know, it's so complex because each of us will have our way of interpreting our experience and what we see. And that is how we grow with the information, right? Absolutely. And Simone is sharing with us. Are there instances of regression as opposed to progression in the evolution of a consciousness? That is a very interesting question. We think there isn't an absolute regression. Let me put into different words what Simone is saying, just to make sure all of us are following the same way, and I hope I'm following correct. Evolution, of course, the meaning of the word is things are evolving, are going ahead, are progressing to a level that it's a more definite level. Okay. But would it be possible for a consciousness who today is, for example, Nancy, the consciousness who today is in a body called Nancy, right? Because this is my identity here in this life. But behind my identity here in this life, there is a whole being that is being manifested here. But let us think and imagine, for example, that the consciousness that now manifests as Nancy, we will learn something here, hopefully, right? I hope I will, and all of us will. We will learn, we'll pass through the biological death, and we'll be more evolved beings then, able to have more ethics, to perform better in whichever position we'll be. Saying these words is a bit stupid and silly, but it's just to bring the idea of evolution. Now, would there be the opposite? We don't think so. The consciousness, the core, cannot unlearn a real information that is there. Sometimes we believe in things or have conditionings that are not as accurate. And of course, if we knew what that information were, okay, let's change it. I write a book and put it all there. I don't know. I only know as far as my vision goes. So the consciousness per se, the entity, now this case entity here, I mean the principle, the intelligent principle that is a consciousness that now is here in this body, will just continue evolving. However, we may have phases in which a situation happens, a crisis in life, that is so impactful that we may experience sides of ourselves and traits of our personalities, or even energies that we used to have in previous lives, and they come afloat, that it's like we are worse, less balanced in this life than we were in the previous one. No, it's just the context that brought up things that were in there. That is the best theory we have so far. And I explained a lot of things because I did not want only to say, no, it seems only evolution. But then you cannot follow my reasoning to say that. So that is more or less the idea. And as far as we could examine, I say myself, other projectors, colleagues of the International Academy of Consciousness, that we have several very serious researchers and experienced people there. So that is the idea. And then I have a question from Patricia. She put the cue there. Thank you, Patricia. It helps me. I sometimes experience vibrational state in dreams. Last night in a dream, I felt I could intensify the vibrations at will. Is it possible or just a dream? On the contrary, I think in the way you are saying, probably it's not just a dream. It's more than just a dream. Can you do it in just a dream? Yes, but only if you would think, Patricia, okay, I'm feeling a vibration. Now intensify the vibration. You can create this imagination, let me put this fantasy in your mind, like an oniric image, an hallucination of a vibration that is not there because you're just dreaming. You can. However, if in that moment, and now I invite you to do this, instead of saying, okay, I can produce a vibration. Yes, I'm feeling the vibration. You say, now I'm going to do velo and I will produce the vibration and I will sense more details. It's like you bring more awareness to your non-physical body, to that moment, to that place you are. If you are dreaming, you will recognize you are dreaming. Then it becomes a lucid dream. If that was a lucid dream and you were to some degree producing that, or if that were an astral projection in which the lucidity was not that great, it was here in the middle, you managed to become more lucid. So the very fact of you controlling the vibration and paying attention to that increase your lucidity. So it's possible it's a dream, but I would say most probably not. If it is, next time you change this. Instead of just deciding, I'm going to do a vibration, say, now I'm going to sense every detail. I'm going to do a vibration with so much lucidity and concentration. By focusing on that, you may be able to change your level of awareness there during the experience. Okay? Hope it helps. John is asking, hi, Nancy, is it possible you to visit and help us get out of the body like other entities visiting us in positive or negative ways? It is possible, but it's very difficult, John. In practice, we could say it's very improbable for a number of reasons. Number one, even my limitation, right? Because how many people can I put a target and get outside the body? Sometimes I manage, sometimes I don't. It's not 100% guaranteed. Have you already done it, Nancy? Yes. But can you guarantee you always do it? No. And it's the same with all of us. There's another component here when talking about taking the person outside the body. So it's more than just being there to help with energy. Being there to help with energy is easier. But being there to take the person outside the body involves another complexity, which is the person we are trying to make project. And sometimes you get close to the person reacts in ways that you didn't expect. So it's not like, for example, Nancy appears there and would touch you or put energy so that your astral body shakes and you say, oh, there is someone here. Oh, it's Nancy. Oh, I'll go with her. Most of the times the reaction is, what's going on? What is this feeling? Oh, there is someone. Oh, who could that be? So we have an instinct of rejecting, an instinct of fighting against. And when we are not very lucid, we act instinctively instead of rationally. So the big challenge here is not to take the person outside the body, it's to make the person lucid enough for us to be able to take the person outside the body. So is it possible to do this? Yes. Is it easy? No. Does it happen a lot? It happens, but not a lot. People who say they can do it easily. Is it possible? No, not for a projector. Is it easier for a non-physical consciousness? In other words, a being, a person who is in between lives to do it? Yes, definitely. Why? Because they are not going to have the impact of the contact with a physical person. They are going to be able to choose the right moment. They can be waiting for the exact moment, John, when you are in bed, you start falling asleep, both the good ones and the bad ones. But me, from my house, how do I know when it's the exact moment that we start falling asleep? And if I get there just 30 seconds earlier, I'll have to be there waiting for quite some time. Is it possible for the projector to remain there? Sometimes yes, sometimes not. Or I get there just a while later and then you are already completely unconscious and very hard to wake you up. Do you understand? So there are so many different factors. And also we have to say, is it possible to enter in your environment, in your bedroom, your house? It shouldn't be so easy. It should be possible, yes, for a spirit mentor enter, or maybe Nancy, if it's a friend, if it's, with the right, Nancy's with the right type of energy and it's coming for some type of connection and action that makes a lot of sense, yes, but it shouldn't be like an open door, anyone enters. Having said that, we must recognize that most bedrooms, most houses are like public squares. Spirits and entities come and go whenever they want. It's not like they are passing through there. It's like if they want to get close to you, they manage. I mean, I'm not making a absolute information. I do not know you, but I'm saying in general, if they want to get close to somebody, they manage, because very few people have a very organized and stable force field around them. It's an energy field, but it's an energy field with certain characteristics that it's like a force field. Some penetrate, can come through, but some cannot. But it's possible. It's possible that you have this. It's possible for other people to have. It's possible to have in different degrees. But that would be involved in taking someone outside the body. Okay? Okay, and then I have Simona. Hi, Simona. Nice to see you here. Could you also comment on the concept of the evolutionary duo? Yes, I can, Simona. Especially with the point of view of encountering outside the body, which is the topic of today, because there are so many different angles. But we call an evolutionary duo, I like better to call an evolutionary couple. It's just more straightforward, makes more sense, and couple can be whichever two people love each other and want to be together. But when it's a evolutionary couple, what it means is that two people who are going through the same path of evolution. It's like their life missions match. It's not the same. Sometimes it's different, but it matches. And they help each other to evolve. And they have had many lifetimes together and many connections, which has its strong traits and positive things. And there are sometimes some aspects to work on, but it's a couple with a very strong connection. Now that you mentioned this, many times we encounter our evolutionary partner when we are projected. Many times means, relatively speaking, right? Among those who have conscious projection, even not knowing it's a conscious projection, many met their partners before they got together in their astral projections. Does that mean it's always positive? No, sometimes they meet their partners or who will be their partners, but it's not a good encounter. It's not someone that we would like to be with. It's someone that we have a great connection with, but more a ill connection, not so balanced, than a very good connection. Evolutionary couples, they always have a very good connection. Otherwise, it's not an evolutionary couple. But we can meet outside the body, these couples. I hope I could describe enough for you to follow and also give this idea of encountering outside the body. And then Mark, hello Mark, is telling us here. What is the purpose of out-of-body experience in relation to progressing our consciousness? If we meet many negative or manipulative beings, then we are finding guidance. What are we to learn? We do not go outside the body to find guidance. We may have guidance, but we do not go to find guidance. Some people have this preconception. I go because there is going to be someone very special and very good who is going to support me. Many times we are going to go and experience life, because life is not the physical world. Life is multidimensional. When we are here and we are stuck in the physical world only, we are living a life that's not the real life. The real life is one in which we are here. We have contact with subtler energies and subtler realities. We influence them, they influence us. When we are in between lives, Mark, we go to a specific realm or any specific layer or level in this non-physical spirit dimension. And we are there for most of the time, if not the whole time. So the experiences that we have there are very flat, very interesting to us, but flat in a sense that you do not go much lower to see people who are in bad conditions and suffering and to support them and give them a hand. But you do not go either very higher or much higher, in which you can learn from those spirits who are so much more developed than you are. So you start having a reference. You see what I mean? A reference of what lies ahead. In the out-of-body experience, because we are still stuck to the physical body, we can visit different places. You can meet, for example, a spirit guide or a spirit mentor. I prefer saying that, but we are talking about the same thing. You can meet one, a real one, that would not be living with you in the same community, in the same level when you are in between lives. So the experience that we have in between lives are different than the experience that we have when we are projected. The challenge we have to be lucid and conscious when we are outside the body, in an out-of-body experience, is one that teaches us deeply how to control our energy, the different densities, the quality of our energies, our awareness, how we can control our non-physical body, the astral body, how we can perceive that reality better. We learn a lot. So the purpose is to learn, to progress, to see life for what it is, to know ourselves for who we really are. We are not only the physical beings we are, with the identity that we have in this lifetime. So that is the purpose. How far can we go? It depends on each of us, on our own evolutionary level. But the more we experience, the more we learn, the more we have doubts, but the more we understand other things. And eventually all of that makes sense, and we start being more wise, more knowledgeable of the reality, whichever we can call reality, right? So a universe in which we exist, you exist, I exist. So that is reality. So the more knowledgeable we get of reality. Is that appealing to you? To me, that is wow. And that's what I wanted my whole life. And when I understood the out-of-body experience, that's it. I go for it. And I am studying this for 35 years at least because of this. I hope I could summarize what I think about this, but what I see also outside the body. Okay? I think I answered everyone. Patricia have a question here. I'm trying to get at least one comment and one question for each of you. If there is time, I'll go back to the second one. But I do not want, to answer questions of many times with the same person and leave others of you without. But you leave all questions. I go to the end and I go back. Makes sense to you? I think it's more useful to all of us, right? But here we have Patricia. It's is it only negative energies making our coupling with us without our consent, or do positive ones do this as well? I felt this coupling and didn't like it, but the energy felt warm and nice. Here, there is a very important thing for us to understand, Patricia. Thank you for bringing this. Being warm and nice and gentle and happy doesn't mean being positive. Being positive has very specific characteristics. We may feel warm and nice and gentle and comfortable. We may, but the most important characteristic of that energy is not, because you may feel something that feels like it's attractive to you and even warm, but it's those manipulative connections. So yes, it's only the negative, or let me change the word negative, allow me. It's only the not so evolved, not so ethical beings that would connect with us without, it's not without our permission, for reasons that are not productive, evolutionarily speaking. Why? Because those who are really the positive ones, really have the ethics to be called the positive ones, they wouldn't do that unless there is a very important reason. So, hope I could answer. Could I? Yes. And then we are here 1 minute. I have a question from Hajat. In dream, I was floating on the sky on the road. It is, though the font here is very small. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's hard for me to see. That's why I'm reading slowly. But starting again. In dream, I was floating on the sky on the road. It is thought. Now I understand. Is it a thought or astral projection? I cannot answer that based only on this. Let me see what else you bring. What is the best book and method on astral projection? Name your favorite master who is expert in out-of-body experience. So first part first, okay, Hajad? Only based on this, you said, it's not possible for us to say it was only you thinking of it, or only a dream, or a real out-of-body experience. This happened in a dream, right? But many cases, this I can say, when we have a dream in which we are flying, especially when you feel flying, you feel the distance, you kind of see and you have the perspective, especially in this way, usually it's not only a dream. Usually. Why? Because we dream of things that are kind of impregnated in our brain with our everyday experience. We are not birds. We are not Superman. We don't fly. Unless you have had several out-of-body experiences in which you experience flying, yes, you could dream of flying spontaneously. But otherwise, why would we? But that is why I say usually it's more than a dream. But of course, anybody can dream that they are flying. So we have to use different elements to analyze that. But if I had to guess, I would say probably it was a projection, but not so conscious, in which you could think, oh, this is a projection. Oh, let me do this. Oh, let me see my hands and feel my energy. Oh, no, you were there flying, not knowing you were projected, because your lucidity outside the body was not too high, but you were there. That is my guess, my educated guess here. In terms of method, what I recommend is the Consciousness Development Program. It's not a book, it is a course. The Consciousness Development Program is a course that has been developed by myself and Wagner Allegretti throughout 25 years. Oh, it's the same, and you have been working on that since ever. No, it's not the same. We update, we see new theories, new research. We learn new things. Of course, we evolve. So the course evolves. And there are lots of explanations with excellent methods, step-by-step techniques, starting from the basics and making sure the person who will try and leave the body knows what they need to know to understand the experience, not to be afraid, to be able to handle energy in any of these situations we are talking about, in which we may encounter something that is not so nice. So I see that in the consciousness development program. The researcher I studied the most was Robert Krukel, which of course already passed away. Why I loved Robert Krukel? Because to come to conclusions, he started putting together lots of different studies, lots of different experiences. And he was not somebody who had experience. He was not a believer. He was not someone who was trying to prove the out of body experience. On the contrary, he was trying to disprove it almost, because he wanted to understand it and see what was the logics. He was one of the persons who influenced the most the science of the study of out-of-body experience. Why? Because by comparing all of these experiences, he could identify some patterns of sensations, patterns of situations people experience outside the body. He created many specific classifications for the out-of-body experience that later many of us used. Of course, we will point to the source of the research and the information when we know it. We, I mean, the International Academy of Consciousness. But we know of people who would write anything, not giving the proper credit. There is one person who was once part of IAC, transcribed the Consciousness Development Program, published in a book, and it was a job made for hire, simply put everything as his own research, his own experience. And it's there the research of dozens of scientists and people who experienced. And this, at that point, 20 years of information and research that Wagner and I put there. So people do this. So I'd rather inform you of what is more up to date and what has been filtered. Other than that, there is another book that I like very much. Two books that I like very much. One of them is the classic book from Sylvan Muldoon. It's a notebook. You will find it royalty-free in the internet. Some of the experiences he described there are so representative of some phenomena we see outside the body. And I love it because he didn't interpret beyond what he observed. He only came to conclusions to the point that he saw facts or had experiences pointing to that. I love it. The first book of Robert Monroe, that's the book that in my opinion, is worse. The first book of Robert Monroe, he's so spontaneous and he tells even some of the things that he could have done better. So I think that is nice, is illustrative. There is another book that I think we even have it in stock at the International Academy of Consciousness, that is by Valdo Vieira, and that is his by far best book and the trustworthy book, because he only wrote there his experiences without bringing ideological ideas behind, because this gentleman started very well, but little by little, this Valdo Vieira, he started writing in his books and teaching things that was a cult, really, period. Don't need to say more. But he has some very interesting studies. There is a book that he wrote that is called Projectiology. It's a huge book, 800 pages about this, with lots of theories, lots of research, not his research, not his theories. He did a compilation. And he's one of the authors that never gave credit. But it's an excellent book, an excellent compilation. If you want to get that in English, you can find it in the IAC website, iacworld.org. It's there. It's worth reading because there's lots of information there from these compilations from other authors. But his small book that is description of experiences to date is the book of experience that I like the most, because he brought examples of, how would I say, he illustrated the out-of-body experience by describing specific experience of different types. And even he said, I do not have as many experience of this high quality usually, but because I was writing the books, was like the non-physical mentors were supporting me to have specific types of experience so that I could write. So those are the books that I love. I recommend the Consciousness Development Program. After that, if you want to really study, the Projectiology book. But that is a little bit hard to read. You do not have the source of the information, but there are very good ideas and techniques there. Could I help? So I guess that is the best I can do. Okay, guys, if you ever consider the Consciousness Development Program, make sure you use the coupon or the link you have in the description of this video, okay? It's there for you guys, and I asked IAC, let us facilitate for those who are there with me to be able to join. I guess we have to stop. I see here one more question that I will try and bring. Life is a gift. It's a gift. If we have strong connections to someone who has passed, it's largely grief that keeps us from reconnecting now. Is this because of the vibrational frequency or something else? It's because of many different factors. Sometimes grief makes it more difficult because it's hard to separate what is a dream, our mind, and what's the real experience. Sometimes if we are grieving too much, it's almost like we are not helped to meet that person, because the emotional side of the body sometimes doesn't help healing, makes things even more afloat, but not necessarily. Sometimes it helps, and we can even be helped to meet the person who passed away. I suggest you watch a video that I have here, Encounter with a Loved One Who Passed. And I give you lots of information, lots of tips. I love that video. I think it brings such a useful information. So make sure you search for this video here in my channel, and hopefully you get something there. I think you are answering, right? To life is a gift. It's sort of hug, and I use my energy to somehow make it stop. It's part 2 of 3. I lost the first one. Let me see if I get. Yes, this is the last one I bring. Is that okay with all of you guys? But the conversations and discussions here are so interesting. Projection account. I recently had what I think was a projection, where a small black cat thing, like with large claws, charged at me, trying to scratch me. I wasn't very lucid at all. And let me see the second part. It's because there is another comment that is nicked in here. Apologies. My mouse stopped working. And now I got another one. And I just try to sort of hug it and use my energies to somehow make it stop. But then I left its energy. But then I felt its energy. It was cold and unpleasant and getting too close to me. I struggled with it for a bit. Interesting account. And almost lost lucidity completely. Then I felt vibrations, and that was the end of it. There's one thing that I would love to hear, to have the whole information, which is, once you finished, you felt the vibrations, and then you felt normal, you felt good. Is that right, Ritiel? Would you write for me right now there so I can read and follow you with that? Because usually that's what happens. So what Ritiel is describing is possible. And sometimes we will be able to interact energetically and help, which is lovely. And we feel great. But if we don't feel good afterwards, something is strange. Because when we do an assistance outside the body, you feel happy for doing it. It's not only happy, you feel positive, you feel growing, you feel positive energies. Even sometimes the mentors help you to renew your energy. So that is what's important. I'm not getting the answer from Eritiel. Probably he's not here anymore, or it's delaying so much. But that was a good point for us to stop, because that was a very interesting account. The out-of-body experience is so complex, and so often we experience things that takes a while for us to understand. So what I can say is, welcome aboard. This is it. But hey, isn't life complex sometimes for us to understand? Sometimes people we love hurt us, and then they are mad at us, and all of a sudden they were mad at us because they liked us very much. And then it's a confusion. Yes, outside the body, sometimes things are complex for us to decipher. But that's it. All real astral projectors will have experiences that sometimes will take them a while to understand and accumulate experience. Thank you so much. Please make sure you join me live for my guided astral projection technique. You know, it's over there in my website. You look at the free events there. So that's a free event. You also can participate for free in the course, for free in the first phase of the course, Multidimensional Force Field. You have the free book, and we have different things. Go there, nancytrivellato.com, enjoy, and I hope to see you next Saturday here in another lovely live talk. Goodbye, guys. See you then. Ciao. Thank you for being with me, all of you. Goodbye.